Yep, a little seat of the pants over here, but here we are. We are live again. And I got Brian Summer recovered from tarmac duty. Brian, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely back on the tarmac again. Just can't get enough of, lovely things like Manhattan, LaGuardia, and so forth. What can I say?
Yep, well, hopefully we got some trenchant insights to show for our trouble, Brian.
Oh God, you're pulling that word back out again. I
Yep,
thought
yep.
we'd gotten through most of the year's enterprise month in reviews without trenchant, but
Oh,
you had to get it in there. Okay.
let's strive for trenchancy today, please. If you're watching on LinkedIn, can you please pop a little comment into the chat just to let me know that it's going out properly? We're also streaming on YouTube, so I can pop a link to that if you need it. But let's try to do it on LinkedIn if it's working well today. Brian, we have special guest our Munchers Inc. But let's have a look at our whole. We're going to talk about buyers and what goes wrong with buyers and does LLM help the buyer's journey, all that crap. But first, we have our agenda. You want to run us through real quick?
Well, as usual, we'll go through the cringy buzzword. We'll also, I think there's a quote of the day on there as well that we'll cover. We got the usual, top three over underrated kind of stories that you and I'll each cover. And then we've got our special guest for the halftime show. That's Barb, and you'll hear more about her in a few minutes. We got there were a bunch of nominations for whiffs of the month, but we got one nice one back there to share with you. And
Oh, yeah. It was actually, it was competitive this month, I will say.
yep. And Martin, thanks for letting us know everything's working fine over at LinkedIn. Fire those comments in as quickly as you can. And see, Martin, if you can fit the word trenchant in one of your comments. That'll really make our day.
Martin, good to see you. And Martin, by the way, I've got your most recent Tech Ed podcast loaded up for from your work on the ground. So I can't wait to listen to that this weekend. Sorry I didn't get to it sooner, but I hope y'all follow Martin's Coffee Corner podcast series if you're interested in all things SAP, because he does a great job from a user and partner perspective. So thanks, Martin, for joining us. There's your free plug for your participation. So Barb, if you're out there, I'm my Slack is down on this computer, so if you need to message me about logging in, you're going to need to message me on LinkedIn. But I think you should have that now. Just check the calendar invite, and we're going to move on now to buzzwords and overhyped tech. And Brian, guess what? I have a surprise one for you that I didn't have time to give you because it just came up today. But let's hear yours first.
So I was at a presentation this week, and in one presentation, one presenter used two words I had not heard before. I didn't know that action could be turned into a verb, actionize. That was a new one. I had to quickly write that down on my notebook tablet. And as soon as I actionize myself, I might try and figure out how to weave that into a Diginomica posting. And then the other one was robotified, and that was a new one. I didn't know that the noun robot could be I don't know what that is, or verb that you robotified something. But anyway, I got 2 for 1 in that one little 20-minute presentation.
Brian, I'm thinking for our end of the year buzzword collection, we may want to go with robotified, which is the
I love
roboticization of the
that.
fast food industry. I think that could work really well.
I like that. I'm going to write that down. Robotified. Yeah. That's something, that's what's going to happen if Popeyes ever adopts robots to cook chicken. It's been robotified. Anyway.
Exactly.
Love that robotified chicken from Popeyes. Okay. And then I also heard in that same presentation about 28 times I heard about how electrons are the new oil. And remember the old quote a couple of years ago that everybody liked to talk was, it, uh, it was digital is whatever is the new oil or something like that. But anyway, and electrons are now the thing. So now that we know that, and everyone's can start dropping these in, everything, status memos, whatever, because your AI LLM hasn't been trained on the new words yet. You have to manually insert them. That's your role as the human in the middle. is to use these new words.
Brian, I think you're really going to like the additional one I have, which you may have heard before. I was hoping you hadn't heard it. It's forever layoffs. And you can do a search on this on YouTube because I watched this guy ranting about it. But basically, it's the new sleazy corporate practice of constantly laying people off in batches under 50 to avoid all kinds of various compliance things that are summoned once you get above the 50 head count dismissal. Forever layoffs. That's a brutal modern buzzword for our times.
See, I thought where you were going to go with it was data was the new oil. That's right. Thank you, Martin. I thought where you were going to go with the forever layoff was the idea that we're going to delayer so many layers out of a company that we have permanently and forever kind of laid off, these roles, people, and positions. But okay, I like.
Yes.
Well, I don't like
Yeah.
the concept, but I like the word. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
no, it's a brutal concept, but it deserves to be called out. And anyway, that's the calling out. And now we are here with our top stories. This one is one of my top picks. This is over at Upper Edge. When John Belden does a project failure deconstruction, it's usually going to be pretty definitive. This Deloitte project, this Zymet Zimmer Bionet, it's just a mess. And one of the most depressing things about it is you could have pulled it out from the headlines from like 15, 20 years ago. It makes you feel like we haven't learned really a darn thing. And maybe Brian, we haven't. But anyway, it's definitely amazing to watch the skirmishing. And as John points out, this is an SAP ERP project, but the technology in these things is generally not the key issue in play, but it is how three parties can really screw something up. And it's funny how Deloitte always seems to find itself in the middle of these things. But anyhow, I think the key takeaway here is that John talks about is a one-sided commercial framework to create predictable outcomes that feel fair on paper but lopsided in practice. So anyway, I think it's really, really important for customers, and even in this modern day and age, to realize that you're at a little bit of a project management disadvantage compared to the big firms. And if you're going to involve one of these big firms, you sure as heck better have someone else in and around auditing the progress of these things. Because the other really depressing thing when you read about these project failures is how long it seems to take people to come up for air and say, this isn't heading in a right direction. I don't know why the interventions don't happen sooner. Brian, this story feels like it could have been written in 2003.
Oh, I think it could have been written about 91.
Yeah.
The by the way, I flagged a couple of months ago in one of my top 3 stories, a predecessor story on Upper Edge on this very same case. And the same guy wrote it, and he was basically predicting then how this thing would go down. And this is this very good article. It's a long one. It really does talk to the point you brought up, which is it's the commercial paper that's the problem. Now, I'm no stranger to doing ERP projects, period. Do a bunch, done a zillion. One of the things I always caution clients is you write your paper for the deal. Don't use the vendors. And vendors blow head gasket over that. Yet I know they have software that maps the customer's, proposed contract wording against theirs, and might even suggest an alternative bit of language. On my bookcase over there, I actually have a 3-ring notebook of mine, about yay thick, that has what the optimal verbiage clients ought to use, what the vendors are probably going to use, that's what they think is optimal, and then maybe what you could live with in between. I can't, I don't know why anybody would accept a standard master service agreement or other kinds of contract documents from a vendor. If you're going to use a counsel to help you on this, and I advise you definitely do that, don't just use any attorney or any contract attorney. Get someone who's got a load of experience with software and services kind of arrangements. And I know Upper Edge does a lot of that kind of work. And we're neither you or I'm trying not to speak for you, John, but I don't think either one of us is recommending who you ought to go,
Nope.
work with. But the idea that you need to reach out and deal with someone who's going to help you unravel decades of tweaks that vendors have put into these contracts to keep them very one-sided towards the vendor. You need to unravel all that before you move forward. Sorry. Anyway.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, we will pick up the pace, but I think that was an important one. So definitely track that. And by the way, don't assume that AI can solve this for you by criticizing a contract on its own. Need expert advice and counsel. My
Well,
next top story.
we do have we do have one resource they could tap into when we get to the
Oh,
whiff
we do.
section for a legal eagle
We do.
resource you'll want to
We
get
do.
to. But anyway, on
We
with your
do.
second story, John.
Well, I'll make this one pretty fast. I actually saw something that Tim O'Reilly wrote that I liked. Tim O'Reilly and I don't agree very often. It goes back a long ways to a comment on his blog once where I took issue with something he said, and he told me that we were talking past each other, which essentially meant that he didn't have time to read my comment. So sorry, Tim, but ever since then, I just haven't been a fan. But he wrote a really consequential piece about AI, and I won't go into all of it here because we're going to get back into AI in a few minutes. But the gist of it is, it's a really important distinction that Tim is making here between AI as a worker or a tool, and he opts for the tool side. And I think that's where I would land as well. And he explains in these pull quotes here, which you can read on the screen, why he takes that stance. And I think it's a very valid stance. Now, in my weekly hits and misses, I talked about how, I don't care as much about the semantics of what you call your AI as I do kind of how you implement it. But it's becoming increasingly clear that your philosophy of how you want to treat people in the context of your AI is becoming a defining factor for your employees and for your customers. And you need to look at that both as a company and as a project team and all of that. And I think Tim's piece, whether you agree with his take or not, provokes that essential conversation, which is why it is a little bit semantics, but it's more about your organizational philosophy more than anything. So that's my second pick. Shall I move on to yours, Brian? Because we got to get our guest
Okay.
on stage here soon. And this is just a real quick aside. Frank Scavo did a really good piece on the risks of generative AI for therapy and companionship, and I give him a lot of credit because this came out of a podcast that he did, and I was like, Frank, you kind of mentioned this as an aside, but it's actually a really big deal. And he researched it more, came out with this piece, and the core here that I think is really important that relates to our enterprise concerns and beyond is there's been all this talk about the AI market bubble and stuff. And what I said, kind of like sarcastically, is if OpenAI was signing 7 and 8 figure enterprise deals, they wouldn't be opening up their tool to more and more therapy, advisory, and porn. So that's kind of the connection that I make between OpenAI's pursuit of porn and therapy, which is not just them; everyone else is doing it, or a lot of LLMs are doing it. But anyway, all right, Brian, what you got?
Um, oh boy, I'm trying to remember this one.
Oh, this is Jan LeCun. Yeah. Jan LeCun. He's been taking a stance against LLMs for a couple of years now after initially kind of being an advocate for them. And this was
Yep.
a good article. He's got a lot of YouTube videos on this topic, by the way, as well, that are really worth watching, like 1 hour presentations of his point of view that have been building up for the last couple of years. I recommend watching one of them.
Yeah. So for everyone on the podcast here, this is a really intriguing discussion because he's basically saying that all this money being poured into the research and development, and we're talking billions per major LLM to build out large language models, may be a dead end. And that you're not going to achieve general intelligence and a whole bunch of other kind of things based off of an LLM path. And there's also this question: should they go for a different way, which was using uh, more a worldview, where they look at things like videos and other kinds of directions. There's no clear answer here on this, but it does show that the world model is something most of us don't have enough experience with or knowledge of at this time. And there's certainly no product out there really around that yet. But I think we all owe it to our whatever employers, clients, and so forth to be on the lookout for this. Because if his observations are even partially correct, it will have systemic impacts on not only the AI market and the vendors in there, but even on the capital markets because of the way the capital is being deployed right now on LLM based technologies. Anyway.
Yep, and Lacoon's not the only one making noise around this. Gary Marcus has been doing it for even longer, and Lacoon has been trying to train world models in this capacity. There's some really interesting startups on this topic, including one by Fei Li. There's also some fascinating work being done around active inference. We've written about that on Diginomica if you want to check it out. Like Brian says, it's not operating at the scale that LLMs are currently, but I think everyone should kind of understand that there's a lot of different approaches happening right now that are really interesting, that could really change the markets. And like you said, maybe even
Mhm.
poke some holes in the existing market. On to your
Uh,
next one. Let's rail them through. What else you got?
oh, this one, really, I just want to point out um, if all you track and care about are some of the US vendors, particularly in the AI space, then you're doing yourself a disservice because there's a lot of other stuff going on in other parts of the world. One of the big questions is around sovereignty. And I heard a lot about that, for example, at some of the Oracle and Oracle NetSuite events that I went to in the last month. Sovereignty is more than just where you locate your data center. And that's a lot of what is happening, even with, in this case, governmental entities in Europe are wanting to move towards open source kind of solutions. They do not want to be encumbered by the or subject to the whims of US based providers of LLMs and AI tools. Anyway, it's something to watch because this whole thing about the politics and everything else of where data resides, it's fluid and it's a pendulum swing. And right now it's swinging back towards individual sovereign environments. Anyway, that's it.
Indeed. Okay.
And lastly, there was just a survey. This isn't a real full blown study, but it did come out of MIT Sloan. And if you're having trouble reading it, and I am without putting my glasses on, but it basically was a poll, not very scientific, but it was asking some execs, what do you want AI to do? You want it to organize a trip and book your travel? Do you want it to plan your meals and order groceries, blah, blah, blah? The last item caught my attention. I don't want AI to do any of these things. And I was like, yes, that is
Woohoo!
exactly where I'm at.
No doubt.
And I think it also points to something that's been bugging me for months now that I've thought for quite a while that we're in an AI bubble. And more importantly, it's because I see this big disconnect between all the overblown hyperbole out there in marketing expenditures and the outrageous amounts of capital going into the space and the valuations for companies. And yet, when I look at the proof points of my interactions with AI tools are so abysmally bad, it makes me think a correction's got to come. And the fact that executives would say, I don't want it to do any of this stuff is just, to me, just validates that there's trouble in River City, and it begins with a T and it starts with technology. Anyway,
The slide's not going to win any awards, though. Anyhow,
okay, all right,
but but a good poll nonetheless, and I wish I'd had a chance to vote on it. And we have our halftime show. By the way, if you are on LinkedIn, please pop in a comment so I can track that. Because our LinkedIn audience is a little quiet today, we got to juke you up a little bit here. Maybe the next discussion will be what it takes to do so. We have Barb Mosher Zink joining us, and Barb, Brian usually has a bio slide. So you ready for this? I
Okay.
never know what's going to be on the slide. So,
it's pretty tame.
oh, Brian, you didn't do the whole like social media personas thing?
I actually started digging around, seeing if I could find something, like 15-year-old embarrassing post she might have done her write up, but I don't know why. I was feeling particularly generous the other day, and I kept it very businesslike. So
Brian, man, you got lucky, Barb. He scours stuff. He
Oh, I find
scours, yeah, he finds some weird stuff, but
yeah, I
you're
do.
you actually look really professional, Barb. How's it
I'm
going?
sure it's out there. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, live from Nova Scotia.
Yep. 5 o'clock and it's dark.
So, yeah, just a little bit of context on Barb and bringing Barb onto the show. Barb's a longtime, Diginomica contributor and, has really held down our overall marketing strategy for a long, long time. And you and I have worked together in different capacities. I've edited your stuff. You edited, the Informed Buyer book that I wrote that took a while to get across the finish line, but I could never have done it without your help. So, we've learned a lot from each other over the years, I think, in having that dialogue, and now everyone gets to get a little sample of it thanks to your most recent article, which we're going to get into on B2B buyers and how they're changing. But I think I really want to start and want to get Brent first. Begins with a P and that stands for Dr. Pepper. That's inside baseball, folks. Brian and his Dr. Pepper. Maybe we'll get to an anecdote about that a little bit later on. Hi, Brent. Nice to see you in the chat. Barb, before we get to your article itself, can you just share a little bit about you've been tracking sort of what B2B buyers care about for a long time. What are you seeing over the years as like changes? I mean, obviously we had big changes with more search oriented behavior, but what have you been seeing just from your vantage point?
Well, I think that the talk about going to LLMs for everything may be a little bit overstated. I think the talk about the website being dead is really overstated. It's definitely going to evolve, but I think that buyers are still going to the website. They're still wanting to find information about the products and services of the brands they're looking at, but we're not as the vendors giving them what they need. So I think that's the big thing. I don't think that is going to change anytime soon either. I think that's kind of the big things I've noticed.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that too is that this whole thing around vendors not giving buyers what they needed has been this long time problem in our industry. And, when I used to have arguments with Hank Barnes over at Gartner, who has done a lot of the pioneering research on this topic, it was really interesting because it seems like a contradiction at first, right? Because you're saying, well, we have a new, more independent buyer. And so maybe vendors think they're off the hook or something, but it feels like they'd never really step back and say, okay, what are the implications, right? Because it's not that that the buyer doesn't want to interact with the vendor. In fact, they seem to judge vendors more than ever in terms of like how they get to interact with them. It's just it's more on their terms maybe, and vendors don't get that.
Yeah, I think, me personally, I don't want to talk to vendors when I'm researching and trying to pick products that I want to work with. I want to know as much about that product up front. And it's really hard information to find. And from a software perspective, a lot of that information is in the technical documentation that, it's on the website on a lot of sites, but it's buried and it's really
Yeah.
hard to read and understand. And if I can't figure it out, I lose interest. And as a journalist trying to understand these products, looking at their websites, I'm like, yeah, your messaging is too fluffy and makes no sense to me at all. Like, what are you all about? I do that. I ask them a lot that they don't like that.
Yeah.
So
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
so I've helped a lot of consulting firms over the years, in addition to some vendors. And one of the most hilarious things I'll do is I'll pull uh, everything, a number of different statements from each of their competitors' websites and their own, and I'll ask the partners in these firms, okay, which one of these comments on here, and there might be 6, 8, 10 of them up on a slide, which tagline is actually from your firm? And not only can they not identify their own tagline, but they are astonished to find out that they sound all the same.
Yeah.
And so there is incredible lack of differentiation in how they market, and more importantly, the information you're talking about, Barb, that you go to the website looking for often is at best function feature stuff, but it rarely describes the experiential angle of what the solution is going to do for the customer of that technology. It's totally
Exactly.
devoid on that.
Yeah.
Most of the websites I see could be the McDonald's bill of materials for the Big Mac song, two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on the set. Just a bunch of functions and features they string together, throw it out on a slide, and somehow we're supposed to get excited about that. And it's not, and it's missing the whole point, like that Coke did that around the same time, where they had all the kids singing, "I like to teach the world to sing on top of a mountaintop." They're not selling carbonated water with caramel coloring, high fructose corn syrup, and all the other ingredients that go in a Coca-Cola. Anyway, you're right on.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, I have a technical background and I have a marketing background. I do marketing consulting. So when I talk to vendors for my pieces on Diginomica, I kinda hit them at both angles, and sometimes they're not quite sure how to answer me. They don't wanna go deep, and I don't know if they don't wanna go deep because they don't know the answers, or if they just think I can't understand it enough to tell me how things work. But I need to understand it to kinda talk about it, and I think buyers are the same way. They wanna understand what these products do that help them solve problems that they have.
Got a nice comment from Martin. He says, "Wow, I don't have the feeling that many journalists and even analysts go that deep as Barb." Indeed, and Barb, that's I think that speaks to the value of really having a an area that you focus on for so long and really looking at how it evolves and also how it doesn't. Which brings us to our piece. If y'all haven't seen the piece, it's called "Buyers Are Engaging with Vendors Sooner, but Not for the Reasons You May Think." And this was based on Six Senses Do B2B Buyer Experience Report. I will paste the link in the chat, though it may not come out on all of your chats. So just have a look at Diginomic if you want to see it. But Barb, what was sort of the gist and the findings of this latest report?
So this is a report that Sixth Sense does, at least for 3 years. They might have been doing it longer, and they go out and they do a huge, study, and I'll just point out they don't survey their own customers, so that's a good point. That's probably one of the good things about the report, and they go out and they try to understand, and they ask questions about what is the buying journey like for you? So what their big thing was that 70% of the buying journey happens before they even talk to a vendor. They do their research, they do their selection of their short list, and once they do that, then they go and they reach out to vendors. So that's kind of been their standing perspective from the research. This year, that kind of shifted, and it shifted that now they only do they're 60% roughly, and 40% is at the 40% point is when they reach out to vendors. So they're hitting vendors earlier. And what they tried to figure out was, oh my God, is our 70/30 all wrong? Is it changing? And it's not. It's just that there are reasons they're reaching out sooner. One of them is the AI point. They want to know, these buyers want to know what's AI in the product. And they're not getting it from the website. And I can tell you, if you look at a lot of these technology,
Sound familiar, Brian?
yeah, there is like nothing on the website that tells you anything deep about their AI capabilities. So that's one of the reasons they reach out sooner, because they've been mandated, according to the study, by their bosses and their leadership to have AI in that product that they're buying. And they need to know what it has and how it works and what's all the security and governance and stuff around it. The other reason they're saying is it's economic uncertainty. So budgets are shrinking, people are getting worried. They want to make a decision faster so that they don't lose their budget to buy that product. But the kind of catch there is they already know who they want to buy. They just do it faster. And so they're not really worried about the risk, according to the report, of buying faster, because they already have done the research and they know who they want to buy. So they do a short list, like 4 to 5 vendors. Most of them order it, and it's the first one on the list they buy almost every time. So it's faster, it's to the vendor, but it's pretty much already decided by the time they get there, regardless, which was always kind of the story before anyway.
So some of that was the concept in this book, which I'm sure you've read, Barb. Is that right?
I haven't read it, but I know about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've interviewed people about
It's
it.
in my top 5 business books of all time, which is
Yeah.
not saying a lot because I don't read a ton of business books, but it is in the top 5, and it informed my own buyer missive as well. Like, I think the concepts in that book never go out of style. But anyway, go on, Brian.
Well, I think some of the behind the scenes, some of the other stuff that's going on is no one understands the pricing of AI, which is another reason why people are not only looking for it on the website, not finding it, but when they press the vendors on it, they get a bunch of wishy-washy stuff, and they have to get into the process a lot earlier to get their hands around what are we going to pay for? Is it on tokens? What do they cost? Do we get volume discounts? How does this work? Uh, what kind of toll charges are we going to get if it's connecting stuff from disparate different systems? The economic uncertainty with making one of these technology choices is pretty significant. And I think smart buyers have to get in front of this stuff as early as possible if they want to have any chance of making a good decision.
There's three things that to me really jump out that I'd like to talk about, Barb, with you that you mentioned in your article. One is AI and LLMs. So I want to get to that. Second is the continued importance of websites. But the third is trust, because I think one of the traps we can get into with this research, and this is something that we spent a lot of time on in the book that I wrote, is that you start to think that buyers are only like relevant when they're in buying mode. But in fact, you really want to start engaging with these people in meaningful ways long before you ever reach that point. Because I'm sorry, but you could obsess about getting listed in LLMs all you want, and you can try, and you might succeed sometimes, but that shit is not science, folks. Like, that's harder to get guarantees on than even SEO in the old school Google days was. You know what's not science is being trusted by people in your industry. That's not science. And I loved your concluding paragraph in this piece, because you say the real takeaway is that getting on a shortlist is impossible if the buyer doesn't know you. Vendors need to get on a buyer's radar long before the buying journey begins, and that requires not just getting found in LLMs, but becoming a trusted resource for buyers all the time, so that when they're ready, maybe if they're lucky, they'll add you to your list. I think that's a really, really important concept that I hope vendors reading that don't overlook and think, oh, we got to get listed in LLMs because that's what the research says. I think that is important to talk about, but forget about that being a solution for not being trusted.
Yeah, and I think the important thing with the LLMs is buyers aren't using LLMs as a research tool to pick their shortlists. Not according to this research. What they found is that they already know the vendors they want to put on that shortlist. Most of these people that are buying stuff have been doing it for 8 years. They're, an average age of 40 years old. So they already know these products, the big ones anyway. So when they go to the next company and they have to do that buy again, they already know who they want to put on that shortlist. So if you're not one of those buyers, how do you get in front of the buyer some other way? And it's not necessarily through creating a bunch of top 10 lists to get listed in an AEO, in an LLM. You can do that, but I don't think that is what's going to work for you. You need to create really good resources and content that people want to engage with. And that's not necessarily just through your brand, but through working with other people in the industry, with influencers and other people that are going to help share your ideas and your stories so that people actually become aware of who you are. And that's not, it's not going to show up in the LLMs the way you want it to.
Brian, you're deep in thought. Something's percolating there. Something's percolating.
I'm thinking about those lovely emails you and I have been getting the last couple of weeks. And
oh my God. Barb, we've been getting these hyper personalized schlock PR pitches from hell. Have you been getting those too?
I don't know. I get so many. I get lost.
They sound so personalized. Like, I've been listening to your podcast. I was up late at night and I was so inspired by the content and blah, blah, blah. It's all this like sophisticated ass kissery written by a machine in order to get you to like embrace their pitch, which usually has nothing to do with the ass kissing that's going on.
Yeah.
Brian, do you have a sample of any of those? They're hilarious.
I'll pull one up here in just a second, but I do want to point out the lack of connection between. I got one today, and they were going, "Oh, that article you wrote about Oracle and ERP, and like, oh, you're the man," that kind of crap, that they're talking about in there. And then they want to pitch me something that has absolutely nothing to do with ERP. Like, I'm going to drop everything to pay attention to this AI generated dreck. But anyway, this is marketing and AI going off the rails here. But I'll pull up an example here in a second. Talk among
Cool.
yourselves. Okay.
Well,
I,
yeah, go
I
ahead,
think
Bart.
it's interesting. I talked to Kerry Cunningham about this report. He's the head of research and thought leadership at Sixth Sense. So he's the one responsible for doing this report. And one of the things he said to me was, if you're not on these shortlists and you have to get on these shortlists, you have to get out there and you have to slam these buyers to kind of get their attention. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't need 10 more emails that look like they're personalized that don't mean anything. Like, I hate that. There has to be a better way to get buyers' attention than having a BDR, whether it's an AI agent version or not, doing all this crazy outreach like that. I think would annoy a buyer more than help.
Yeah, like
Well,
here's a novel idea. Maybe create a podcast series I actually want to listen to, and I get to know a bunch of people from inside your company because of the great information that you're sharing. Wow, oh my God, like actually create something of use and value in the world. Like, wow. Oh no, I thought AI was going to fix all that for us. I mean, this stuff is getting comical after a certain point. The other thing I'm going to point out too is that getting listed at LLM is really an elaborate thing, and like you're saying about the websites, the articles on this topic are not very good, and you got to be really careful you're getting the right advice about this, because when an LLM trains on content, it does not necessarily surface if you go to AI search, for example, and search, a lot of times it's a consolidation of a number of different perspectives, and it doesn't necessarily list where those sources are coming from. And when it does list where the sources are coming from, that's not from inside the LLM. I'll spare the long overview, but that's coming from RAG context, which is essentially some kind of knowledge graph or vector embedding that is them being ranked, chunked, and prioritized, and only a handful of sites are getting listed. And that's a whole separate thing than the LLM itself. So before you start thinking, oh, it's going to be easy to go get listed in LLMs, well, it's not. And I do think it is worth looking at that, and how it is you can be successful in that. But to me, like, it's all I just think about it as an overarching strategy, Barb, where, and this is one thing I really like about your articles, is that you're always asking, like, what about this piece? Like, everything's got to work together, right? It's the website matters, the LLM visibility matters, the trusted content matters, it all matters.
Yeah. I had a really good interview with the CMO of Bloomreach for my next article upcoming about the website and what's happening to it. And it is definitely not going away, but it is changing, because you do have to have it work for both people and for the LLMs. And I kind of asked her, I said, how do you do both? Because it's two different ways that you want to surface an experience versus give me the information. And she kind of gave me examples, and I just thought that is really going to change the way we build websites. So, but they're not going away, because the LLMs still need all that content. So for everyone who says the website is dead, it's not. It's not going anywhere, because if it does, what's going to feed the LLM content? I don't know what else would, other than, LinkedIn social feeds, which are, let's not talk about those, because they're not very good.
Oh man, you know how to push that button, don't you? I'm not going to go there. I've had enough rants. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you guys have got a bottle of Pepto handy, I can read you this lovely AI entreaty I got this morning. You want to hear it?
Yeah, let's hear that.
Hi, Brian. I noticed your recent LinkedIn discussion about the fast-changing focus in AI training. I don't think I ever wrote them one, but anyway, and it sparked a few thoughts here. It also brought to mind your piece, Rethinking Success in Next-Gen HR Tech, where you zeroed in on how companies are reimagining talent strategies in response to emerging tech. I don't think that's what I wrote about. Anyway,
God.
Just this week, I've seen finance and HR leaders looking for concrete ROI links from their AI and SAP investment, especially as Q4 planning draws closer and the pressure to justify those budgets for retention and growth.
This is like, is there a gong? Do you remember the Gong Show? Can I ring the gong? This is brutal. This verbose gobbledygook posing as savvy pitch. Oh my
But John,
God.
your Oracle AI World 2025 analysis struck me, particularly the point about impact trailing the initial buzz. Oh my God. And it goes on. It's three more paragraphs to this.
Brian, we were at a Brian Summer fan club meeting, and I was struggling to actually get a word in because everyone was testifying to how great you were. But finally, I had a chance, and I said I've read 100 of Brian's articles, and I've got 25 points that I want to surface. I mean, why did? Yeah, and Brian, I think your prediction around HR applications is about to hit us on the PR side. Like, I think we're going to just be deluged by this stuff, and
Oh yeah,
it's going to be an interesting challenge.
Hmm.
yeah. Well, let's stay on that point, and I'd love to hear Barb's thought on this. Is you've been talking about the creation of what I would call quality content that can help people make buying decisions or what have you, or do the research they want to knock out. And yet, that's not what's being generated for the most part today. There's just vast amounts of just dreck and repurposed crap everywhere. I'm struggling right now with trying to help some people again on the consulting side. John hasn't even seen this yet, but I have a piece where I critiqued 4 executive chairman type speeches at big 4 firms. And they all were talking about the amazing power of artificial intelligence, how it's going to transform work as we know it today. And all 4 pieces were awful. These were 15, 20-minute kind of TED Talks. You could tell they used AI to generate their slides. One of them had not 1, not 2, but 6 typos that were all machine language generated typos on the guy's slide. And I'm like, how can you pretend to be an expert when you didn't do anything other than feed a prompt, on a Gen AI tool? Why should anybody in the audience believe you know anything about this subject because you bring nothing new and original to the table? It's one thing to generate content. It's another thing, or have AI generate content for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's any good. It's all dated in the past and it's pretty much worthless. And these people want us to believe they're the experts and the top leaders in their firms. And I was just like, oh, kill me now.
Is there a question in there?
What do you think we're going to see with content? Are we going to get will content actually improve at all? Or is it going to keep going downhill?
I think it's going to go downhill for a while. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of the crappy AI content because people don't know how to leverage AI to do anything else. I would love to see some of those CEOs get up on stage and go, you know what, we don't have it figured out, but this is what I know to be true. And this is what we're doing. Because I think that's what the buyers really want to know. We don't believe anybody knows all the answers. It's changing every 5 seconds. There's something new coming out and different. So tell us what you do know and how you're trying to figure things out and take us along with you, as opposed to, just pretending you know everything when you don't know anything at all. And I think that I'm not opposed to using AI to help with content, but I think you use it more as a way to help you figure out what you should be talking about and how to look at things differently, because what it's spitting out is what everybody's talking about. So if everybody's talking about this, how do I bring a different take to it? How do I bring a different story to it? And I think that is going to help us. But a lot of companies aren't there because they have content writers who may not know how to do that, may not know how to look at it that way because they've been maybe SEO writers who just give me a keyword and I just spit out content, right? So I think, and even I'm not even sure journalists necessarily are the answer to that. I do think it's someone who does have some kind of tech, if it's a software platform anyway, or a heavy tech one, you've got to kind of understand how to pull everything together. And I think we're a ways away from doing that. I think the ones that succeed will figure it out faster, but I think we're not there yet.
So I was talking to a client today that had, because one of my big things that I write about a lot is like what AI is good and not good for and how we get confused by that sometimes, which I think gets to your point. And one of the things I think AI can be really good for is sort of overall campaign and content asset management at scale. Because it can really help you kind of plan out for a quarter or a year, like the different kinds of assets that you want to release and what cadence and all of that. Because that's really hard work for humans to create those plans from scratch. And I scratch my head sometimes when people like don't focus on that part. And so they were walking me through all their different assets like webinars and podcasts and blogs and all of this. And frankly, it was a pretty well generated plan and all of that. And I said, this looks pretty good. I said, but the one thing I'm going to challenge you on, since that's kind of my job here, is these assets aren't created equal. In other words, saying you're going to do a webinar, let's say it's a webinar on building AI mobile apps or something. Like all webinars aren't created equal. So just don't say, "Oh, we're pushing out a webinar this week." Like you need to also have a standard inside your firm for what constitutes a great webinar and have the characteristics defined. For example, a robust Q&A period instead of the whole like, "Oh, sorry, we ran out of time while we were doing all our promotional gobbledygook and didn't have time for your questions." Like, why do you think people came to your webinar? They came to ask the questions. Like, so just like have these characteristics lined up for each kind of content and realize, to Brian's point, it's an attention economy. Like people choose where to give their attention. And frankly, I think with a handful of exceptions, which are alarming, they're not choosing AI generated content. And certainly in a B2B context, I have yet to go to an event and hear anyone tell me, I'm sorry, John, to be late for the meeting, but I was watching this amazing B2B AI generated content, so I couldn't have a talk with you. No one says that. No one cares about your AI generated content. Um, hey, Martin, you had something to say here. Sorry. Isn't that how the Big Four always did? Of course, it's faster and amplified now. Are you talking way back about the project one, or maybe we have a LinkedIn delay loop?
He's
Anyway,
talking about the comment I made about watching these four like chairmans of different big four
oh,
firms
okay, yeah,
totally screw up their
yeah.
in this
Martin,
article.
that is so deeply cynical. How dare you say that about our consulting leadership? Anyway,
Well, and he obviously doesn't know I used to be one of those kind of people. But anyway,
so Barb, let me hit on that point from one other angle, because I'd like to hear you comment on this because I think it's really important. Is all websites aren't created equal either, and one of the reasons why I think vendors and brands need to re-embrace their websites a little bit is because their traffic is going down somewhat. They're kind of like, oh, this is legacy, and we need to get in the LLM now. But the website's the one place where they can really control the whole experience for the visitor on their terms and get the signups if they have good content to sign up for. Like, wouldn't you say that it's more important than ever to like create a website that's meaningful and engaging so that your high impact people when they show up actually like what they see?
Yes, but that is really hard to do because
Okay, so we
you
should give up
really
because it's
have
hard.
well, no, but you have to think it's not just personalized. You don't wanna just personalize the website. It's gonna be highly contextual. So
Yep.
I'm coming to your site for product X, not product Y. Don't put all this product Y stuff in front of me. I don't care. But remember that so then I go buy product X. I come back now for product Y. Remember, I already bought X. Don't show me X anymore. Show me Y. Like it's super contextual how we need to build that experience.
Totally, but don't tell brands it's impossible though, because that's going to ruin my day. Tell them it's hard, and they need experts like yourself to help them. But it's doable if you put some thought into it.
Yes, it is.
All right,
And
that's what I wanted.
yeah. And I will say that a lot of companies or a lot of people are talking about using conversational interfaces as the front end to the website so that you can get that context right off the bat. And then you do go into a website that is highly personalized or contextual to what you're trying to do. And then the next time you come, you can say something different and your experience is completely different. And I think that that's probably where we're going. And I hope that when the companies do it, they just don't slap a AI chatbot on the front end and screw it up royally, which I think probably a lot of them will to get started.
Mm.
oh, you just stepped on my favorite
Oh,
exposed nerve
another
here.
can of worms. Oh man,
Uh, I hate going to
Barb actually pretty good at this, Brian. She's pretty good at riling us up. Like we just
yeah, this going to, I go to the trouble, get to a website, I'm hunting and pecking, trying to find answers, and they're as rare as hen's teeth. And then a chat bot's popping up, wanting to know, you know, are you finding what you need or how are we doing or whatever? and it just torques me off that I could sit there. I can type in one word answer, like I'm not finding anything. I just go no, or I could write a whole book in the chatbot deal, and it doesn't change the outcome. I'm going to get a terrible experience. It's nothing's going to change. It's a waste of time. Put that chatbot up there. I don't care how AI smart it is. It just is going to frustrate me to no end to have that there. And any vendor who thinks that is a reasonable substitute for actually imparting some real knowledge to a potential buyer is an idiot. But not that I have an
All
opinion.
right. All right. Well, no shortage of strong opinions today. Hey, Martin, you just asked a question. Hey, no doubt you are definitely absolutely carrying the chat today. So, uh, maybe you're still getting a feel for this show, which is a little bit back and forth and freewheeling, but you are absolutely appreciated here in the chat. Feel free to keep going because we're not quite done. Barb, I want to wrap this segment. You can hang out for the final bit, but first, if you just give me a short answer to this, but if you could tell vendors, like, I know it's hard to pick one thing, but if there's one thing they could do a little bit better on the topics we discussed, what would that be?
Um, I don't know. Oh God, you're gonna stump me there. Put better information on your website, not just your product features and functionality.
Okay.
Do an experience that works better for the people that are coming in.
And I have a hunch you're going to be writing about this topic pretty soon.
Yep.
So in a way, this functions as an article preview. So stay tuned. And Barb, thanks for sharing what you do, because it's always really great to hear, because you live this day in and day out. So thank you for joining us for that. And you're welcome to hang about. We are going to do our little final segment here, which is the easier part of the conversation. Oh, Brian, I think this is our first Kim Kardashian appearance on the show. So that's
Uh,
something.
well, we had a unpredictions article one time that we predicted
Oh, that's
a
right.
new
Yeah, we
TV
did.
show would come out called Keeping Up with the Kubernetes. But that got a little bit of traction, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. This one, just this one made my head spin on so many levels. One, the imagery of Kim Kardashian arguing with Chat GPT over the incorrect, as she said, answers it's feeding her on how to train for the bar exam in, I guess, California or somewhere. And but the idea that she's arguing with Chat GPT just seems like, well, this is how celebrities interact with LLMs and the answers they get from it. We were talking earlier about if somebody needs legal help on doing a software contract. I don't know whether Chat GPT is who you lean on, or you go with Kim Kardashian and associates on that. So that's assuming she gets past the bar. But when I saw this, I mean, you guys can read the excerpted quote there. I mean, it doesn't help my faith in humanity knowing that this is how little some people understand what AI is all about, that she's arguing and throwing tantrums or whatever about AI.
Uh, Evidently, she has not been passing the bar exam. Oh, and by the way, I did want to editorialize on that little thing that says someone needs to tell her about Gemini 2.5 Pro. You got to be kidding me. Quit pushing the latest release as if it solves these problems. Stop it. Stop it. But I don't know, Brian. We shouldn't cast aspersions to her legal aspirations. She's just choosing a strange avenue to acquire her credentials. But hope it's not a cul-de-sac.
Anyway, I wish her the best of luck on passing the bar, and
No doubt.
might have to go a different route than Chat GPT to really ace the exam. Anyway, good luck on that.
I'm just a little disappointed you didn't take my whiff nomination for that people are modifying Meta Ray-Bans to spy on you,
Yeah.
which cost $60 to modify the Ray-Bans, which led to my comment. Being a creep used to be free. Now you have to fork over $60. But anyhow, I can take the blow, Brian, because this is a good whiff. Now let's shift gears. This is the most challenging transition in the entire show. And Barb, you're going to come along for the ride here. So just so you know, start thinking about something that inspires and creates value, because that's Brian's dog, and Brian's dog inspires and creates value. Brian, what inspires and creates value besides your dog?
Well, I've been working with David Dobrin and some others and a team he's got on figuring out a way to help HR and other parts of an organization, operational aspects of it, understand who in their management ranks isn't adding value. In fact, it is probably destroying value for the company because of the way they interact with people. And I don't have time to go through the whole feel here, but more of this will come out in the future. But this has been a fascinating process going through that and uncovering all kinds of really cool stuff along the way. And one of the things I learned from David just this week was how management oftentimes is something where a lot of people think that once they got promoted to a manager that they clearly already possess managerial skills, they know what's going on, and they don't need to learn anymore. And he told me that no, being a manager is like owning a dog. You might think you know a lot about owning a dog, but the dog's going to show you over time there's a whole bunch of things and tricks it knows that you never saw coming. And you constantly keep learning and learning in life through not just one dog, but multiples that you might own. Anyway, I thought that was a rather, I could talk for an hour on that alone, but I thought that was a really fascinating way to look at it. We all need help learning new little tricks and tools on how to be better managers, motivators, and everything else for the people that work with us.
For mine, I will go with, I realized I forgot to put that in the deck, but I had it's out on x.com on my John ERP feed. Oh, wait, we got to go into a comment first. Brian's leaving with an interesting teaser. Wonder how many aren't adding value. Well, I think we got to a lot of the people that aren't adding value earlier in the show. So if you missed any of that, I think there was a heavy dose of that. We're trying to focus on what adds value right now. Anyway, so something that inspires. Well, I can't speak to the value in a market sense, but after the last event of the year and back at the airport, I tracked down one of our colleagues who's been on the show before, Bonnie Tinder of Raven Intel in Chicago, and found Bonnie at Bonnie's Gate in Atlanta. You guys know that's a massive airport, right? But I tracked her down and I used my app to find the Starbucks next to her gate. There's a nice photo of us doing the toast with our little personalized Starbucks things. And it's like, yeah, we made it through another conference season. And, it feels really good to be able to share a moment like that with someone you respect and trust. And it's oftentimes it's those little moments that make it all worth it for me. I'm not sure if that adds value in other people's worlds, but it sure makes a difference in mine. So Bonnie, wherever you are, thanks for that wonderful moment in the Atlanta airport that just really made my day. So Barb, what inspires or creates value in your life?
You know what? My daughter does. So,
Oh,
she's in her second year of university. I have 2 kids in university, but so both of them really inspire me, but she's in a science program, and where all the kids are out there using AI to write their papers and do their research and stuff, she's, like, anti-AI. She does everything from scratch. She has pages and pages of coordinated digital and paper notebooks and just blows my mind. And I think that we could all learn how to do more of that and stay more that way than just automatically assuming AI is gonna be the answer to everything. Now, I will say she did discover Notebook LM, and she loves that she can create cue cards off of all of her study notes for studying her tests, so but yeah, that's kinda what I look at.
I think I like your daughter quite a lot. Think I'm a fan. Love that story. Thanks, and was really nice to have you join us today, Barb.
Thank you.
And we have a final comment. Cool story. Thought all the stories were cool, so we'll just apply that to all of them. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Yes, I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And Brian, you and I are definitely going to do one more of these before the year ends. Some kind of, we'll figure it out. But sometime in December, we'll be back on a Friday, and we may actually have some surprises in store at that show, right? But we decided not to tease that too much. So
Yeah, I think we will have. I think it will be festive in a different way. It'll be a fun kind of conversation. Let's leave it at that. Okay.
indeed. Well, hey, I appreciate y'all joining in on the feed. It looks like we started to get a little critical mass towards the end. It's funny how that works. Martin, thanks again for carrying the chat on your side. And thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.